So Adam has had 15 years of experience working in consulting at senior and executive levels. He brings his experience to play in practical application of fundamental concepts of organisational design and leadership. The result is an organisation that is designed and run so it can deliver what it promises to its customers, people and owners alike. Can you please put your hands together to welcome Adam to present on quality leadership.
Thank you. Good morning. A little bit about what we do. We do, it's a very, I guess you'd say, becoming fashionable thing called organisational design, the way organisations are put together. And we also look at how organisations are run, which is kind of known as leadership. And it's a field that's becoming, I guess you'd say, a lot of people are flocking towards it, organisational design being a fashionable thing at the moment. But what I'd like to talk to you about today is how to turn on the clicker, which is just here. What I'd like to talk to you about today is what we're all dealing with at the moment. Then I want to talk to you about what the challenge is for all of us in this room. Then I want to make sense of this thing called work. Then I'm going to talk about the conditions that need to be in place if we want to see quality leadership. And in the end, we'll talk about what does it all mean for you. That's what I'll be talking to you about today. Now, what do? What I do basically is I provide a map. I'm going to provide you with a map or a model for how you can see your organisation. And we often say that once you see organisations a certain way, then you'll be able to keep using that model as you progress through the rest of your career. This is the Yarrabilla Trail. Who's heard of the Yarrabilla Trail? Get your hands up in the room. The Yarrabilla Trail, I had an awful job experience many years ago, and I decided to quit. It just wasn't working out for me. I was actually out of flow, something I'll talk to you about in my presentation this morning. And so I quit. And what I did is I discovered this thing called the Yarrabilla Trail in the map shop. It actually connects the Adelaide Hills together. It connects Belair, it goes through the National Park, through Eagle on the Hill, Summertown, Norton Summit, Morialta, all the way through to the River Torrens. And piece by piece, I walked the entire trail, 54 k's. So in my mind, the Adelaide Hills connects. If you connect it, I can actually picture each bit of the hills. If we go from Belair all the way through to Athelston, it makes sense to me in my mind. It actually makes sense in the mind of Ben Hay, who'll be talking after me, and also Tim Levitt from our team, who's up the back reporting, because they actually ran the Yarrabilla Trail as part of the endurance event. That's what they do each year. That's called crazy people. So the Yarrabilla Trail, so I'm going to provide you a map. I'm going to give you a Yarrabilla Trail for your organisation. How does it work? Well, this is the sort of thing that can occur. If you look at the things that I've been a part of in my career, I just want to point out one of them. This was an area that I took over. This was the staff surveys that was occurring at the time, and that's what's called a bloodbath. Because if something is a red square or white, it was well below benchmark. I remember the CEO called me in, and without a word, he said, "These are the results of the area you're taking over." And that's all he said. Yeah, I get the idea. In 2 years' time, 82% of the scores were above benchmark. So what I'm going to be talking about today are the principles that were put into place. And I want to point out something else, very unfashionable in the modern world. 2 years later, not the following day, not the following month. I'm not giving you a quick fix. I am not giving you a quick fix. I'm going to give you some models and ways to look at things, and it's 2 years later. In other words, it's real. It's not fashionable. Same stuff. Principles of organisational design and leadership were put in to achieve those results with the same stuff. So what are we dealing with? Well, you can actually look at it, just to use these rough three categories: economics, social and technology. Economics, we've never been richer, we've never been poorer. That's creating particular pressure in your industry, in the industry that we also work in as well. Because what you've got is a situation where the money flows are changing, the level of choice expected is increasing and increasing. Yet people have less money. The values of houses are relatively less than what they were for the people that own them. There's more difficulties coming through. Socially, we're more connected than we've ever been. We've never been more lonely. And socially, as a society, are we going to make it? Do our economic systems actually allow us to survive? These are the questions that keep hitting you every day. Not so much in the paper, but through Facebook, various things coming at you to tell you that things are changing. And technology, we all know we're supposed to be doing digital transformation and using technology in a certain way. It feels like there's opportunity, but what does it all mean? What does it all mean? So what's the end result of that? That. It feels like this. There's energy coming into the system, and the system's cracking. I had a mate back in the very, very younger days. He had a 1969 Valiant Safari, and he said, I took it out on the freeway, and I thought I'd see what I could make it do. I said, how'd you go? He said, well, when sparks started coming out of the exhaust, I figured it was time to back it off. Okay, sparks are coming out of the exhaust. This is what it feels like in our heads. This is what it feels like in our organisations. This is what it feels like for our people. This is the challenge. Ilioprigogine. If anyone's heard of ilioprigogine, that's quite intriguing, because ilioprigogine is a thermodynamics physicist from quite a long time ago, and he actually talks with this basic system. See one? One there, energy coming in, energy going out. The system is handling it. We go across to two. There's more arrows now. Energy going in, energy going out. Then we get to three, the diagram we've been talking about. That's the Valiant Safari going down the freeway with sparks coming out of the exhaust. And we have two options at our disposal here. Option 4A, we change the design to handle the energy. That's 4A, it's a different shape. Because if we don't, we get 4B. This is our challenge. Can we actually design our organisations and put in practices for how we run them to avoid 4B? And 4B does happen. You'll get canaries in the coal mine. You'll get various little things occurring. You'll see things like, might be a second period in a row drop in staff survey results. It might be a customer service thing starting to drop. It might be a feeling you're getting. They're all canaries in the coal mine. But often in our industry here, 4B, that's called the paper. That's called a current affair. That's called that sort of stuff. That's 4B in many industries. And that's what we're looking to avoid. So canaries in the coal mine come along, but we do actually get a boom. It can happen. So the leadership challenge in front of us is, what do we do to get to 4A? Now this is what you're faced with. Leadership. Google says 819 million results. Let's try to do something about this. Organisational design, 28 million. Complexity, 138 million. Management, 9.9 billion. This is hard for you. Okay? I need some advice. I want to avoid 4B. What do I do? There you go, 9.9 billion options. Okay? Complex. You can feel the sparks coming out of the back of the Valiant Safari, can't you? Leadership course Adelaide, they get to 517,000. Here we are in Adelaide, and we still have 517,000 options for a leadership course. Okay? It's a tough gig that's in front of you. Did a presentation last week talking about the fads and the trends coming through in organisational development, and we just chucked up a few. You know, we gave a speech at the start about, let's just keep it real. This is what they are. Then we said, what other things do people want to know about? And we had another 10 that we had to put up there. This is all coming at you. And when you ask for solutions, this is what you get. You get fidget spinners. That's what you get. When you look for a solution, you get the next fidget spinner. You get the next colourful thing. But you know what fidget spinners do? Nothing. Okay? Nothing. I had a weird experience. I did a trip to Melbourne with a friend to watch some footy games, first one in years. I've got 3 kids, 5, 3 and 1, so it was like the moment of, wow, I can actually go to Melbourne because I think the kids are old enough to. And so went to Melbourne, and I'd heard about a fidget spinner. I read something, and then I was walking through Melbourne, and a guy would have been about 21, 22, walks out of a 7-Eleven holding this thing, spinning like this. Oh wow, that's a fidget spinner. What an absolute moment of non-event. It does nothing. That's a teal fidget spinner, by the way, because teal, believe it or not, is one of the fashionable things in organisational design. You might have heard of a teal organisation, one of the things coming through. Here's the challenge. Stop fidgeting and either fix something or make something. Okay? Stop fidgeting and either fix something or make something. And that's the challenge that we have to ask whether we're up for it. So if you want to build something, we have to have an idea about what we're going to build. We have to make sense of this thing called work. And I just want to point out that today I'm talking about, there's 5 particular figures that what we do is we put together their work amongst others. And I just always want to give credit where it's due. Okay? I didn't invent gravity, but we can talk about gravity and the way it can work to help us in our organisations. You might notice that these aren't young people. I like that. I like that. Who wants to guess when Newton was doing his work in terms of the laws of motion? Put your hands up if you think it was 1800s. Put your hands up if you think it was 1700s, 1600s, 1600s. It was about 1680, 1690. Okay, that stuff still works. Just because it's been in play for a long time doesn't mean that it's no longer correct. The fact that it still works today shows you that Newton might have had it right. And we can argue, by the way, that when Einstein came along, things changed, but you know what? We're not going at the speed of light here. We're going to be okay. We've evolved the work of these guys. We've taken the work, which is some amazing work that's existed for 50 or 60 years, and we've evolved it and put it together into a model that works in 2017. But the credit goes where it's due. So work. This is a quote from a guy called Elliot Jacks. That was hard work, doing the work we had to do at work today. So we all go to work. We're talking about workplaces, but the basic idea, what are we talking about? We don't actually know. Effort, hard work, doing the work, which are the tasks at work today, place of employment. So I'm going to propose a definition of work that can help give you a lot more clarity in terms of what we're actually doing, which is this. Work is causing a transformation to happen, using judgment to make decisions, to deliver an output to someone. In other words, work is choices, but choices for a reason. Work is choices, choices for a reason. That's what work is. And then that leads to effort, maybe physical skill to get it done and that sort of thing. But if you start to view work as decisions, and decisions require judgment, we can start to make more sense of it. And by the way, it's some sort of weird human magic as to how decisions are made. Because the moment you make a decision, you actually don't know how you made it. Like, what causes that moment where my wife Jane and I were talking for 2 years about should we get umbrellas on the deck? What's happening in the 2 years up to that? I don't know. I can tell you what we're doing. We were buggering around. That's what we were doing. But what actually happened was, for some reason, there was a moment in time where the decision was made. That's human judgment. The opposite of judgment is calculation. If a calculation can work it out, no judgment's required. It's the human element, the judgment. That's what work is. That's what work is. Here's another way to do it. All work's producing something of a certain quality, a quantity and a quality. As we move along there, we're talking about time passing. We have limits. We have limits. And then human judgment is finding our way there as things occur to actually get to the output. And see that part in the middle where the arrow's going along? That's called freedom. That's called autonomy. That's called the ability to be you and figure out your own way to get to the solution. And just as a side note, those boundaries are important. Has anyone ever been to the park at Mitcham, opposite the Sturt Baseball Club there? There's a park there, it's got a creek running through, and there are no fences. So when you have kids that are 5, 3 and 1, what do you think I'm doing? I am following them around like this the whole time. I'm like Jason Bourne. I'm getting to the lines of sight, I'm seeing where they are, I'm making sure I know exactly where they're going. You go to Apex Park, which is at Blackwood, which is a fully fenced zone, those children are now free. They can go wherever they want because the limits are clear. Now, adults are not children, but if we have clear limits and we have a clear outcome, we now have freedom to get to where we're going, to apply our natural judgment. Pretty simple stuff. It's almost like so simple that can it be right? Well, I don't know if it's right or not, but it works. Now, not all decisions are the same. There's different levels of complexity. Fancy definition of complexity? I'll read it out. The number of variables operating in a situation, clarity and precision with which they can be identified and their rate of change. Let me give you a normal way to look at it. How many things are in the air? How many of them can we see? How fast are they moving? And are they changing? How much stuff are we juggling? That's what complexity is. That's the stuff that's coming at you. That's what's making the sparks come out the back of the Valiant Safari. Complexity. So when we're talking about decisions, we're asking people to make decisions in varying degrees of complexity. So by knowing the complexity we're talking about, we can create a system that can handle what's coming at it. And in the end, strangely, there are really only 5 decisions. This is a simple model which can handle very complex situations. There's 5 decisions, and the order of them is the increase in complexity. See the first type of decision? How do I get done what I need to get done that's in front of me right now? Those decisions. If I'm putting a needle in and I see something that's not exactly what I thought I was going to see, what do? I make a judgment call. Do I adjust what I need to do? Do I make a call for help? See how they're decisions that are coming at you all the time. The reputation of our organisations is formed by the people who make those decisions. Think about a council. We do a lot of work with councils as well. How quickly can I mow this lawn to get onto the next lawn while doing it in a way that actually is the sort of quality the community expects? Which blade should I set it to? What setting? All those sort of things are continual decisions that are made. And that's where the reputation's made. Because if those decisions are made well, then the reputation of your organisation is quality. If those decisions are made not so well, or in a rushed way, then the quality drops. And if we spend too long making those decisions, we run out of money. So those decisions are crucial. The next level of decision is setting the specifications for that. Setting the container, setting the guidelines. You'll hear from Ben about way to articulate processes and what the outcomes of processes need to look like. So I'm actually setting what a good job looks like. Imagine you started a lawn mowing company and you've got big enough that you've had some success, business is coming in. It's when you get your 20 people together and say, this is what a good lawn looks like. This is the standard we're trying to achieve. That's the next type of decision that needs to be made. Get the work done, identify what the work needs to look like, and then the third type of decision is put it into a wider system. Put it into a whole network, a whole connected series of events, so we can actually get that done. Are you sort of getting a feeling that what we're talking about here is our workers on the front line, and maybe managers and specialists, and maybe middle management, senior management, and that sort of thing? That's not a coincidence. This is the natural way work evolves. Hierarchies evolve as a natural outcome of that. That's why hierarchy is the dominant type of organisation principle that we have. Decisions 4 and 5 are, what are we going to do with our networks? What should they be doing? That's what we traditionally call strategy. And even just setting the requirements, we need to get better overall across the board at this, otherwise we won't be viable anymore. That's the fourth type of decision and the fifth type of decision. Commonly known as executive, commonly known as strategic, all those sort of words. That's what we're talking about. And if you want to see it as a picture, it looks like this. We have a domain of work, and we give them names. We have the quality theme of decision, the service theme, and the practice theme. And that's a whole domain of work. We call it the operational domain. That's the domain that your customers receive in the end. Because if we have all those decisions working, we'll actually have a situation where the outcomes we're looking for will get delivered. Notice we've got 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. It's almost like this hidden trick. Research has found consistently, and still to this day, that if we can see the outcome of our decision in less than 3 months, it's that first decision type. If we can't see the outcome except for between 3 to 12 months, we're talking about that next type of decision. And if it's the sort of thing that we're not going to see the results for a year, then we're talking about that third type of decision. This is like the temperature gauge that allows you to measure the complexity. You can use time as a way to measure complexity, which is kind of logical because more things move in 10 years than move in 1 day. This is how work works. The next domain is that strategic, or we call it the innovative domain, and that's decisions about what that previous domain should be doing. And we have the strategic development and strategic intent, decisions 4 and decisions 5. What should the domain be doing? What's the purpose of the whole show? How is it put together? This is the Yarravilla Trail for work. It allows you to see what's actually occurring. Hierarchy is something that comes out of the natural way work organises. Hierarchy has a very bad name. It's very uncool to be talking about hierarchy at the moment. You'll hear words like command and control, those sorts of things are put in. You know what we're talking about there? We're talking about what we could call a dominator hierarchy. In other words, hierarchy is filled with people who aren't nice, or people who are genuinely overwhelmed by what they're being asked to do. Any situation where someone has authority, that authority is open to be abused. That's what can occur. So the problem is not hierarchy, the problem is not authority, the problem is in the way it's used, and can we tell how people are using it? Because hierarchy actually nests. It actually helps people create an environment where they can get their work done. Think about a shop. A shop in a shopping centre, the shop relies on the shopping centre, and the shopping centre relies on the shop. The shopping centre is a more complex thing than the shop, because it involves multiple shops and how's the whole thing put together. Yet it creates the environment that allows the shop to succeed. So who's better, the shop or the shopping centre? The answer is neither. That's how hierarchy works. Create the conditions for people to succeed. Set up Apex Park to allow the kids to actually have freedom and play. set things up. Hierarchy is an enabling thing when done well. And it's an awful thing when done wrong. That's why you get the teal fidget spinners. Because bad hierarchy is awful, and you're better off going to something messy and chaotic, and you can call it things like emergent and that sort of thing. You're better off living in that than you are living in a dominator hierarchy. But if you can live in a hierarchy that's enabling, we can create genuine freedom for people to get their work done. Because if all those decisions are being made, what you've got then is an organisation that can actually deliver what it's supposed to today, as well as being able to move towards the future as those strategic decisions are made to say this is what we need to look like to be viable in the future. So that's our goal. Our goal, if we want to have quality leadership, is to set up a situation where all these decisions can occur. That's what we're trying to get done. So your first checkpoint is, are all the 5 decisions being made in your organisation? Are all 5 decisions being made? If you want to know which one we find in our work missing the most often, it's that 3rd level decision, the one we call the practice thing, which is how is the whole network put together. That's the one that's most often missing, because work will naturally sink to the level where we find someone who can handle it. And if all the work's being done and we haven't got time to do anything else, then those decisions at the practice thing aren't going to be occurring. So there's your first checkpoint. Are all the 5 decisions being made? So what are the conditions? What do we need to do to get this to occur? Remember, our goal is this. Quality leadership is leadership that adds value to the decision making of other people. That's what the job is. If you're in a leadership role, your job is to add value to the decision making of other people. If you're in a role that's called manager, then this stuff isn't optional. You're paid to do this stuff, to add value to the decision making of your people. You're not paid to tell them what to do. You're paid to add value to their decision making. That includes outlining where we're trying to get to. So what are the conditions? Quite simple. We need to have a structure or an org design that actually allows all the 5 decisions to occur and that provides people sufficient freedom and sufficient clarity so they can get it done. We need to put people into those jobs that have the capability to make those decisions. That's the C. And we need to have practices of leadership that switches the whole thing on. So in other words, we hook up the plumbing, we make sure that everything's plugged into the plumbing, and then we turn on the water. That's what we do. Structure, capability, leadership. So let's talk about structure. Remember, the fashionable word these days is design, organisational design. Let's talk about structure. This is how we get pain. Because what you're looking at here is a diagram of how pain is caused. Each situation there, we have those 3, they're the decision points. So look at this one here. Let's call that first decision, or let's say quality theme. Let's call that service theme, and the one at the top, let's call that the practice theme. And those circles with people in them represent the decisions that they're being asked to make. If you have a situation such as A, that's a small business. We're trying to hook up our suppliers, our various networks, trying to get all that done. I'm trying to specify what a good job looks like, and meanwhile, I'm answering the phone trying to get a sale. So someone starting a small business is covering all those decisions. But then you get a bit bigger, we start to employ people, we get things like managers and stuff. A situation like B has 2 people reporting to each other. That's an assumption in the diagram. They're reporting to each other, but they're both making the same theme of decision. We call that compression, and that's a recipe for pain. Because if you're this person, and when someone asks you at the party on Saturday night, so what's your boss like? She's all over me, she's breathing down my neck, she doesn't give me any room to move, gets right up in my face. You know, all those sort of expressions? And can anyone think of the common term for someone who does that? Micromanager. And then we'll say that that boss, he's got a micromanaging personality. It's like, no, the decisions being asked to make are forcing the micromanagement to occur. By the way, if you're the boss, you say, I wish my person would just shut up and do what they're told. That's the sort of thing you'll hear from that as well. It's a structural outcome because of the way work organises. It's not the personality type at first. That's what we're doing. That's called compression, and that's common. Some research shows that 37% of roles are suffering from compression. Research by some colleagues we've got in Canada. 37%. Scary, hey? More than a third suffering from compression. C is less common, and that's what we call gap. You've got someone who's making the decision to stay out there, and they're not actually articulating or adding value through here, which means that the person here feels like my boss is up in the clouds, I never see my boss, he or she's not interested, and by the way, the boss says they're not a self-starter. Why do they know what to do? You'll hear all those sort of comments on those sort of lines. Again, it's a predictable outcome. We can sometimes tell by looking at an org chart where you've got 6 layers of management sitting there, all reporting to each other, and unless you're BHP, you don't need 6 layers. So somewhere in there is compression. And we can almost pull a magic trick. Let me guess, micromanager, micromanager. How'd you know? It's inevitable. It's kind of fun. And then it's kind of sad because it's a situation where people are in a lot of pain. There's only 2 types of pain. Your customers are in pain because they're not getting what they were promised, or your people are in pain because life's too hard. They're the 2 types of pain. We're looking to set up D. We're looking to set up D where people have clear idea about what they're being asked to do, and they haven't got someone else who's making the same types of decisions. Because in the same way that 2 people doing the same job sideways can be annoying if they're overlapping, same thing, okay? Exactly the same thing. So we need to avoid that situation. Because you can get a structure on paper that looks like this, which is fine, but then if you look at the types of decisions they're making, you might realise that all 3 are making the same decision. And if you say to this person, who's my real boss? They'll say there. And you say to this person, who's your real boss? They'll say there. Predictable. You just ask that question, who's your real boss? Who do you go to when you really need some value? And here's the overnight fix. No one loses a job. We just change the reporting. And this person, say, might even be a supervisor role. This person might be the person who runs the shift, keeps everything on track. This person's called the team captain if you're playing footy. That's what they're called. They make sure the plan gets executed. But the point is, we have that. This eliminates compression. We have to actually guide people through the change. There's a change in reporting and that sort of thing. But usually when you do a change like this, people come up to you to say, mate, I could have told you that 3 years ago. And that's when you know it's natural. Because people can feel this stuff. People can feel it. That's what happens when you get compression. Just let you have a quick look at those things there. Might be a familiar story. Alternatively, think about times where you've worked for someone where you've loved it. And you'll think back, they would have been operating at that theme of work that would have really added value for you, would have given you context, would have really helped you with your work. It's quite a predictable outcome. You can do analysis that allows you to see this. You can see that these guys over here are in pain. Because you've got a lot of people doing the same type of decisions right up in each other's face. Automatic pain there. This is like an X-ray. When you look at an X-ray and you see a broken bone, it's no genius to figure out where the pain's coming from. The genius is in the X-ray machine itself. This is like an X-ray machine for your organisation that can predict where your people are in pain. It's called levels of work analysis. It's the decision that counts though. So I always just like to point out this whenever I talk about hierarchy. Even though your org chart looks like that, the way it actually works is like that. Because just because this person might be the one who makes those decisions and say that service thing, nowhere in there does it say they do it by themselves and tell everyone else to shut up. Nowhere in there does it say that. You do it by getting everyone around the table and saying, what are you seeing, guys? I need help. I've got to make this decision. How come overtime has blown out 4 months in a row? How come we're not hitting our call response levels? What's going on? Call a meeting, get people together. But the person in the service team role, his job is to call the meeting and get into the discussion and make a call in the end. And that person then might be in a meeting here. Maybe they're in a meeting about how the whole network's put together. So even though we're talking about the hierarchy of decisions, don't get caught up in saying it's therefore a dominator hierarchy. It really works like the 2 examples out there on the right. So there are our structural designs. So your checklist is, do you have any of the obvious signs of compression? Can you feel them in your organisation already? And do you have clarity in the difference between, in particular, manager and supervisory roles? Do you have compression right there at the front line with confusion between your team captain, supervisory roles compared to your true managerial roles? Because by sorting those out, a lot more freedom can be created in the system. Notice how the design is affecting the leadership. We haven't even talked about the individuals here. The design are the conditions that allow for quality leadership. We need people in the roles who can do it. And I want to give you a model to talk about capability. We call this the tripod, the capability tripod. Here we have knowledge, skills and experience. Do you actually know what you're doing? Or at least can you learn somewhat quickly? Knowledge, skill, experience. Over here we have values. Do you like that sort of work? If you don't like working outdoors, lawn mowing is not for you. Okay? It doesn't matter how much I might be asked to do gardening, it doesn't matter how much you pay me, I don't want to garden, okay? I don't like it. So you'll never get a truly good effort from me. You'll get a momentary effort to try to look good for half an hour. That's the best you'll get out of me when it comes to gardening. We need to value the work, or at least find a sense of duty in it, by the way. Some sort of sense of duty, at least I feel like it's honourable what I'm doing, or it's noble. Wisdom is the ability to understand yourself and see yourself in the situation. The ability to understand other people are not you. That other people are not you. Knowledge, skill and experience allows me to stand up here and talk to you today. Wisdom says I don't do it wearing board shorts, because that would be weird, right? Wisdom, understanding yourself in the situation. And then we have capability. Capability is the natural ability of someone to handle the complexity of what's coming at them. It's often that missing element. Because if someone knows everything about the job, they love it. We love them, they get along with everyone, they understand all the people around them. They love the job, and now we've got them in that role and they're just not succeeding. Why is that? Maybe they can't handle the complexity of what's coming at them yet. And that's a sad situation, by the way. Everyone gets all frowny at them, like there's something wrong with them. It's sad. You can see good people go down and it can affect their lives. Because what happens is this, if you fall out of flow, if this is the scope of the challenge you're being asked to do, and if this is your natural capability, and the two things come together, it's in the flow zone. But if what you're being asked to do is actually more than what you can naturally handle, that causes pain, anxiety, and it causes pain for all the people that work for you. If it's a middle manager role, or even a CEO role, there's a lot of pain being spread through the system now. And you can get boredom in the other direction. You can get boredom, which eventually leads to outcomes that aren't too good. You can replace boredom with valuing the work so much. That's why people do volunteering work and that sort of thing. And that can be replaced for a while. But in the end, we want to be able to apply our capabilities to do work that's valued by other people. So we need people to be in the flow zone. And this is how we do it. Capability roughly unfolds, and you've got 50 years of research that shows there's a rough predictability to capability. This isn't some sort of right or wrong thing, by the way. You're welcome to try to achieve a role that's more complex than what you naturally can handle. Just be aware that you'll find it stressful. You won't see your family as much. And you better eat well and exercise because it's going to hurt you. But you can try. This is not supposed to be some sort of not allowed thing. It's just designed to actually give us a bit of insight to get people into roles where they can add value. And if we can achieve this, we've got much more chance of people being in flow. So the question we ask ourselves is, what percentage of your managerial leaders, the ones accountable for getting the results, do you believe are finding flow in the work they're being asked to do? And we use some formal tools as a way to help provide some insight onto that. But you know what? If you got 3 of your people together, say 3 of your colleagues, and I gave you a list of 15 people, and I said, tell me on that list who you would give the hardest project to. Give me your top 3. You're going to come up with similar names. And if I said, give me the 3, you'd say, maybe not them. You would probably give me similar names again. We have an innate way to tell capability around us. And often our formal process we use helps to give you some rigour behind what you were seeing anyway, and gives you the courage maybe to have that conversation we should have had. And then we need consistent leadership minimums in place, okay? Because if we're trying to pull this off, we need someone who can actually land the plane. And you know what's weird? The field of leadership has got hugely caught up in making sure pilots are really, really good people. That's what the field of leadership has become. Hi, my name's Adam Thompson. I'm not sure how to fly a plane, but geez, I'm a nice guy. Anyone getting on board with me? We are entrusting managers with the lives of people because we're spending all that time at work. We are entrusting senior managers with the lives of hundreds of people. We are entrusting general managers, executives with the lives of thousands of people. They need to know how to fly a plane, okay? It doesn't mean they get to be disrespectful mongrels, but they need to know how to fly a plane. And you know what? Can you fly a plane by rocking up and saying, I'm willing to have a go? You kind of need to be trained. You kind of need to be trained, okay? The training needs to cover this. We need everyone in the organisation to have half a clue, let's go for more than half a clue, about answering these 5 questions. How do you find out how that's going? Easy. Chuck that survey out tomorrow. Simple. Do you know where your area is going? 1, if you have no idea. 5, if you're crystal clear. Anywhere in between, see what you get. That's going to give you an instant indication of the quality of whether your managers are putting planes straight to the mountain. Simple. Find out. And then what's the training required? We can really make it simple. We just need to make sure that this stuff is happening. Just this stuff. This is called flying the plane. Do your managers know about context and planning? And I'm not talking about complicated planning processes and that sort of thing. It's just context. Here's why we're here. Here's where we're trying to get to. Here's the idea about how we're going to do it. In other words, do your pilots know how to submit flight plans? Okay, it's kind of needed, right? Okay, guys, we're going to take off and let's see where we go. Who's getting on that flight? That's what we do, though. Think about it. And don't use the excuse that it's a complex world, therefore, we can't figure out where we're going. You've at least got to get started. And if something happens on the way and you hit a storm, then we change the direction of the plane. But we've got to submit some sort of flight plan. Half of these things on the list aren't complicated. It's more like, are you doing it? Work clarity. Can the pilot actually define what we're here to do? And then here's what I need you to do. Co-pilot, here's your job. This is what we all do as part of this team. Actually create work that's clear. Harder than you think. We use a rigorous model to make work clear. You can use any model you like though. In the end, I'm not fussed. And the worst at it tend to be the ones higher up in the organisation, because the excuse is always, I pay them a lot of money, they should know what to do. To which I say, you pay them a lot of money, maybe you should tell them what to do. Okay? Can we create clarity on the work? Can we assure performance? Do we actually know what to do if the plane's not on track? Do we know how to have the conversation to sort that out? Can we build a team that actually can work together? And you're going to teach me how to run a meeting. Yes, because you keep crashing planes. So I'm going to teach you how to fly one. Then when you fly one, it'll become easy. And obviously we need to improve. We need to get better at flying the plane each time. These are the simple stuff. You can see that tough job that I have because it's so unfashionable, isn't it? It's really boring stuff. And it is. The cool stuff are the results you're trying to achieve for your customers. Getting it done, submitting the flight plan. I'm not trying to think that any pilot's going to find that fun. But it's what we have to do to avoid crashes. Minimal standards, by the way. We need to have communication and relationships, and we need to have wisdom. They're minimal standards. A lot of working pilot training actually is about basically saying to captains, stop being arrogant people and listen to people around you. So that's a requirement. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we don't expect our pilots to actually have minimal standards for that. What I'm saying is that's not the whole game. So the question is simply this. What percentage of your people could answer the 5 Qs? And do you have a set of managerial minimums that if you're going to be a pilot in this organisation, we need to know that you can actually do this? And we're going to find out every now and then by asking your people whether you are. Simple way to make sure we've got the quality leadership. And for a lot of people, they might already be doing it. But for others, we can at least identify some training. So what does it mean for us? Simple and easy are not the same. The things I've spoken to you about today, they are simple. I don't want to try to make them fancier. If you want to get healthier, eat more fruit and veg and go for a walk. Does anyone think that knocking off pies for lunch is healthy? Okay? But it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to knock off a pie for lunch. Because pies are easy, they're in front of you, they taste good, at least temporarily. Okay? They're fidget spinners. This is a hard road, but it's the road that actually gets you quality leadership. It's tempting to get the latest thing because that way you get your brain buzzing and it's exciting. What you're doing is you're avoiding the discipline of actually making real change. We just need to have a structure that'll work, that'll cover our 5 decisions. We need to put people in who can do that. And we need to actually have just a simple set of leadership practices that become the expectation. Okay? Do we have the courage to avoid fidget spinning? That's our simple checklist. But the real question on the checklist is actually that one. And it's a personal question. Are you willing to build a model that can actually work for your people and therefore your customers, and to expect minimal practices that will see real change? Remember the staff survey results I put up at the start. 2 years. It's not a fidget spinner, there's no instant gratification, but there is long-term gratification from a healthier diet that eventually evolves into a much more healthy organisation. Thank you.